Most people believe their money is safe. It sits quietly in a bank account. It earns a little interest. It doesn't fluctuate like the stock market. It feels responsible. It feels mature. But what if I told you that right now? At this exact moment, your money is quietly shrinking. Not because you spent it. Not because you made bad investments. Not because you took risks. But because you trusted the system to protect it. Today, I want to show you what is actually happening to your money, why 2026 is not like other years, and why the advice most people are following will quietly fail them. And most importantly, I'll show you the only framework that has protected wealth through wars, depressions, inflations, crashes, and currency collapses for nearly a century. This approach is not exciting. It is not trendy. It will never go viral. But it works. Stay until the end, because the final section is where everything becomes practical. Clear steps, no theory, no hype. The comfortable illusion of safety. Let's begin with something simple. The average American holds around $65,000 in savings. In the United Kingdom, the average household has roughly £17,000 set aside. Most of this money sits in savings accounts earning around 4–5% interest. On paper, that sounds reasonable, responsible, even. But paper lies. Because over the past 4 years, inflation has quietly eaten away more than 20% of purchasing power in both countries. That means money you earned, saved, and protected now buys significantly less than it used to. If you had $100,000 in 2020, its real value today is closer to $80,000. You didn't lose it in the market. You didn't gamble it away. You didn't make a mistake. You simply left it still. And stillness, in modern finance, is not safety. It's erosion. Why 2026 is different? Here's where things become dangerous. Central banks are trapped. They raised interest rates aggressively to slow inflation. Now economies are weakening. Growth is slowing. Debt is massive. The pressure to cut rates is growing. And when interest rates fall, your savings account yield will fall with them. But inflation will not disappear overnight. This creates a silent squeeze. Your savings earn 2–3%. Prices continue rising at 4–5%. That gap is the tax you never see. The loss you never feel immediately. The damage you only notice years later. But that's just the first problem. The bigger threat nobody talks about. The second problem is far more serious. Currency devaluation. Since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, the US dollar has lost over 96% of its purchasing power. The British pound tells the same story. This isn't a theory. It isn't politics. It isn't fear. It's arithmetic. Governments around the world are buried in debt. The United States has crossed $34 trillion in national debt. The United Kingdom exceeds £2.6 trillion. Historically, governments do not pay this debt back honestly. They inflate. They reduce the real value of what they owe by reducing the value of the currency itself. And your savings, held in those currencies, absorb the damage. The people who suffer most are not reckless spenders. They are savers, planners, rule followers, people who did everything right. A fragmenting world. Now add one more layer. The global financial system is breaking apart. Trade relationships are changing. Supply chains are being rebuilt. Geopolitical tensions are reshaping markets. Currency competition is no longer subtle. Countries are actively trying to weaken their own currencies to gain advantages. When everyone races to devalue, holding cash becomes the losing position. The old rules. Save diligently. Trust institutions. Avoid risk. Those rules were written for a world that no longer exists. The fatal mistake people make. When people sense danger, they panic. They chase whatever is working right now. Crypto at the top. Meme stocks. Get rich quick promises. High returns with no risk. Fear turns into desperation. And desperation destroys wealth faster than any recession. This is not how wealth survives. The answer is not prediction. It is not timing. It is not secret knowledge. It is structure. Why most financial advice fails. The financial industry profits from movement. When you're scared, they sell you solutions. When you're greedy, they sell you opportunities. When you're confused, they sell you complexity. Financial media thrives on contradiction. Crash versus boom. Gold versus no gold. Real estate versus collapse. Confusion keeps you dependent. Noise keeps you clicking. Emotion keeps you trading. I've watched this cycle repeat for decades. Different actors. Same outcome. What actually protects wealth? Wealth is not protected by one action. It is protected by a system. A framework built on principles that do not change with headlines. There are 4 components. Miss one, and the system weakens. Combine all 4, and you are ahead of 95% of people entering 2026. Component 1. The margin of safety. You must spend far less than you earn. This sounds simple. It is not common. Most households save 3–4% of income. After inflation, that's zero. Wealthy households operate differently. They engineer a permanent gap between income and lifestyle. 20%, 30%, sometimes more. This gap is not optional. In unstable times, jobs disappear. Income fluctuates. Expenses surprise you. The gap buys time. Time prevents panic. Time allows opportunity. Time creates control. Component 2. Ownership of productive assets. Cash is not an asset. It is a temporary storage unit with a leak. Real assets produce value. When you own businesses, you own labor, systems, intellectual property, pricing power. When currencies lose value, prices rise. Businesses adjust. Revenues adjust. Ownership adapts. Savings do not. This is why long-term wealth lives in productive assets, not cash. For most people, broad low-cost index funds are the simplest path. No prediction. No stock picking. No obsession. Just ownership. Component 3. Strategic liquidity. Cash still matters, but for a reason. Not as an investment. As insurance. Cash gives you emergency protection, opportunity during chaos, psychological calm, 6 months of essential expenses. Accessible. Untouched. Ready. This money will lose purchasing power. That loss is the price of flexibility. And flexibility is priceless during crises. Component 4. Automation. This is where everything succeeds or fails. Humans are emotional. We delay. We hesitate. We override logic. Automation removes the weakest link. You. Money moves automatically. Investments happen automatically. The system executes without permission. Discipline becomes irrelevant. This is how wealth compounds quietly. While others react. Your 2026 action plan. Calculate your income-expense gap. Increase it immediately. Own productive assets. Maintain emergency liquidity. Automate everything. Repeat. Ignore noise. Stay boring. Final thought. Storms always come. The question is never if, only when. The people who survive are not the smartest. They are the most prepared. Build the system now. And let time do what it has always done for disciplined people. There is one truth about money that almost no one wants to accept. Wealth is not built by intelligence. It is not built by prediction. It is not built by working harder than everyone else. It is built by time. Time, applied consistently to the right system, does the heavy lifting. This is why people with average intelligence quietly retire wealthy, while highly intelligent people often struggle financially their entire lives. Because intelligence seeks excitement. Time rewards patience. And 2026 will punish impatience harder than any year most people have lived through. The psychological trap of modern money. The modern world trains you to expect instant results. Instant messages. Instant entertainment. Instant delivery. Instant validation. Money does not work that way. Compounding is invisible at first. Boring in the middle. Unstoppable at the end. But most people never reach the end. They quit during the boring phase. They interfere during volatility. They abandon the plan when emotions rise. That's not a failure of knowledge. That's a failure of psychology. Your greatest enemy in 2026 is not inflation. It is your own reactions to it. Why doing nothing is sometimes the hardest skill. In financial crises, the biggest winners often look like they're doing nothing. They are not trading constantly. They are not reacting to every headline. They are not changing strategies every year. They are letting time work. Most people confuse activity with progress. But activity often destroys returns. Every unnecessary decision introduces error. The more decisions you make emotionally, the more chances you give yourself to sabotage your future. Doing nothing, when the system is correct, is a discipline few people master. The difference between risk and volatility. Most people misunderstand risk. They believe volatility is risk. It is not. Volatility is movement. Risk is permanent loss. Markets move. Businesses fluctuate. Prices change. That movement is not dangerous if you own productive assets long term. What is dangerous is selling during fear, buying during euphoria, concentrating too much in one idea, betting instead of owning. Volatility is the cost of admission. Trying to avoid it usually creates the very losses people fear. Why headlines are designed to hijack you. Financial headlines are engineered, not informative. Fear sells. Urgency sells. Certainty sells. Crash coming. Last chance. Don't miss this. Experts shocked. None of this helps you build wealth. It exists to provoke emotion. And emotion is incompatible with long-term success. If your strategy changes based on headlines, you do not have a strategy. You have a reaction. The quiet advantage of boring consistency. The most powerful force in finance is not leverage. It is consistency. Small actions, repeated for decades, outperform dramatic moves made occasionally. Investing a modest amount every month for 30 years beats trying to time the perfect moment once. This is why automation is non-negotiable. It protects you from yourself, the news, the market, your mood. The system continues even when motivation disappears. Why most people overestimate short-term danger and underestimate long-term damage. Humans fear sudden loss. They panic at crashes. They obsess over downturns. But they ignore slow decay. Inflation feels harmless year to year. Currency devaluation feels abstract. Opportunity cost feels invisible. Yet these quiet forces destroy far more wealth than crashes ever have. The biggest losses usually come from money that never grew. Not from money that temporarily fell. The real role of cash in a fragile world. Cash is not an investment. But it is a weapon. Used correctly. In crises, liquidity equals leverage. When others are forced to sell, those with cash choose. They buy assets at discounts. They reposition calmly. They negotiate from strength. Without cash, you are reactive. With cash, you are strategic. This is why your emergency fund must be sacred. Not touched. Not invested. Not optimized. It exists so the rest of your system can survive stress. Why simplicity wins when complexity fails. Complex systems break under pressure. Simple systems endure. Most people add complexity because it feels sophisticated. More accounts. More strategies. More products. More opinions. Each addition increases failure points. The best systems are boring because they remove decision fatigue. Fewer choices. Clear rules. Automatic execution. Complexity creates fragility. Simplicity creates resilience. The wealth gap is not about income. Income matters, but less than people think. The real divider is behavior. High earners often inflate their lifestyles. Low earners who save consistently often surpass them. Wealth is not what you earn. It is what you keep, protect, and compound. 2026 will widen this gap. Not between rich and poor, but between disciplined and undisciplined. Why waiting for clarity is a trap. Many people delay action because they want certainty. They wait for the election outcome, the rate decision, the market signal, the perfect moment. Clarity never comes. Markets move forward without permission. The best time to build systems is before clarity exists. Once clarity arrives, prices have already adjusted. Action beats certainty. The long game nobody wants to play. The truth most people reject. Building wealth is intentionally boring. No drama. No genius moments. No excitement. Just saving consistently. Owning productive assets. Staying liquid. Ignoring noise. Letting time pass. This is why few people succeed. Not because it's hard. Because it's dull. And dull does not satisfy ego. What 2026 will reward? 2026 will not reward prediction. It will not reward speed. It will not reward confidence. It will reward preparation, patience, structure, emotional control. Those who build systems now will not fear volatility later. A final reminder. You are not trying to beat the market this year. You are trying to survive decades. You do not need brilliance. You need durability. Money grows quietly when left alone, and disappears loudly when mishandled. Build a system that requires less thinking, less reacting, less emotion. Then step aside. Let time work. That is how wealth survives inflation. That is how fortunes cross generations. That is how ordinary people win extraordinary games.